Thank you, Laura. And thanks to Missouri River Relief for bringing me here. I'm excited to be in this beautiful pavilion and introduce my work to you. Like Laura said, I'm Adrienne Outlaw. I'm a socially engaged, multidisciplinary artist working to build community around social and environmental responsibility. And today I'm going to talk about my work to find creative solutions for plastic pollution. First, I want to talk about what building community around sustainable art practices means to me. It's very similar to the ethos as I have been introduced to Missouri River Relief, fostering relationships, introducing people to each other, providing a safe space for people to have dialogue, provide a time, a place, and an activity to do something. Also, I always make sure that the work can be maintained and that we don't deplete resources. For the past 5 years, I've focused my work by using post-consumer, what most people call plastic waste, as source material for my work. The idea started in 2019 during a summer I spent in Southeast Asia. During the trip, I saw the global impact of our plastic waste. That is a beautiful forest we hiked. And right here, you can just see the incredibly shiny city of Singapore. I lived there for a couple of months, and I met with several artists working in the field of social practice. One of them was Ernest Go. He is there on the left with one of my daughters. He has a long-term project called Ayer, which I absolutely love, and I encourage you to look it up. It's Ayer, Ayer. For this particular project, he was situated in downtown Singapore, and he would throw these dinner parties, but you didn't actually eat. At the dinner parties, you would pick out microplastics that they collected from the beaches with tweezers. And it was just really interesting. The table was beautiful. You got to meet a lot of people. You got to learn about microplastics in the beach in that area and the difficulties that Southeast Asia was having with plastic. At the same time, this was 2019, China stopped taking our plastic waste. And this was really news to me that we even shipped our waste out of the country, it wasn't being recycled here the way that we were told it was being recycled here. So I really, I'd already been thinking about using recycled materials. I had just moved to St. Louis a few years before, but this trip really hammered into me what I wanted to do to focus my work. Before this time, I'd really been working on issues of global consumerism and desire and how much we want to just buy, and eat. So this helped me really focus down onto the environment. When I got back home, again, I moved from Nashville. I started doing some research about the plastic pipeline, as I call it, to the oceans. And I realized, oh my God, I'm 4 miles from the Mississippi River. And then I learned that the Mississippi actually drains 40% of the United States. This is the watershed. I mean, it just like boggles my mind every time I look at it and realize all these rivers that come into it. So St. Louis, and the other towns around here are critically important to solving that plastic waste problem due to our proximity to the Mississippi, and of course the Missouri also. There's probably some people who are living on the Missouri that are here tonight. What we aren't able to stop here flows, as you can see in that map, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. And then from the Gulf of Mexico, the tides take it out to the Atlantic Ocean, to that great garbage patch that you're reading about all the time. Once it gets out to the ocean, the sun and the ocean currents and everything break that down into the microplastics. So what I'm hoping to do is kind of teach people to stop getting those plastics into that stream. So with that, I decided COVID happened. And I didn't really know what else to do. I started collecting my family's trash. And I did a lot of research about other artists working with plastics, and there'll be like, say, a architectural firm in New York, and they'll collect like milk jugs from the community, like 25,000 milk jugs, and they'll build this beautiful pavilion, and it's gorgeous, and it's talking about plastic. But what I wanted to do was show people what a family of 4 goes through in a year and a half. And the amount of recycled food and cleaning containers that I collected just for my family was kind of amazing. This is just a very small collection of it. When I first started working with this material, I spent about a year and a half just looking like a bag lady. I mean, I literally bagged the plastics up at my house. I would take them to the studio. I have a studio in Midtown St. Louis, very near like the Symphony and Fox Theater. And again, I wasn't really doing anything at that time other than cleaning those containers, making sure I didn't create a biohazard situation, categorizing them, and just seeing what I had. I was kind of stunned by the amount of like milk my family drinks. So I'll show you later, but there's this one piece that I made that's a wall of milk cartons. It's 385. And that's just the half gallons. We also had 56 full gallon jugs. So we drink a lot of milk. Anyway, so when I started working with the material, it was really difficult for me because I come from, I was a fiber artist. I really worked with all organic materials, like really hardcore organic materials. I worked with leather and fingernails and hair and, like really soft, pliable, yet strange things. So when I went to this plastic, I was pretty turned off. That crinkly stuff you get your produce in, and it just bugged me to no end until I started carving into it and lighting it. So when you're able to take those moments and you can write a friend like a note thanking them for something, and you've got the perfect pen and you've got the perfect piece of paper, and you're sitting at that gorgeous desk with maybe a beautiful plant next to you and the sun coming in. That is what I feel like when I'm carving this material. It's just from a tactile perspective, it's just amazing to me. I'm gonna try not to kill everybody on Zoom. This is a laundry container. And I carved into it. And so what I started doing is putting these pieces on a LED light background, and I photographed them. And once I realized how plastic glows like stained glass, like everything changed. And I just had the time of my life. These are, can anybody guess what these might be? What? Nope. Good guess though. It's plastic. It does, doesn't it? I hadn't thought about that. David said it looks like these sheets of plastic used for roofing. It's actually, yes. Very good. Very good. They're actually little grape tomatoes that we buy, but it's grape tomato containers. And this is again, like when I categorized my family's waste, I was like, oh my God, we drink a ton of milk. We eat an unbelievable amount of these grape tomatoes, and we seem to be obsessed with arugula. Things just like kept coming back. Anyway, I'm taking these materials, I'm cutting them up, I'm spending a great deal of time trying to organize them in a way that you don't immediately recognize the container that it came from, and maybe you don't even recognize that it's plastic. So again, these pieces live just as prints. They're not actual sculptures. This is the milk wall. And this milk wall, this is actually a sculpture. I'm showing this because those prints I sell to offset the cost of making these like giant installations. And this is part of a giant installation, the milk wall. So for this, it was really interesting because I used to make incredibly physically participatory work. And when COVID happened and I realized we can't like be in proximity to each other anymore, like how do we work this? So on the sides of these milk cartons, I had painted everything out white. And then I had a bunch of people come to the studio and painted letters and numbers. And I even had a friend of mine paint Chinese characters. And so before all this happened, it was this idea of you could like sort of use these as building blocks and play material. But as I was building the installation that I'm working on of just my family's trash, I ended up going with a much more minimalist feel. And the thing that just stunned me was 385 containers exactly fill this wall. We didn't drink one more, we didn't drink one less. It just all worked out. And if you'll notice the color gradation, I did not create that. That is from the milk. So I'm lactose intolerant. So you can see like 1/4 of that wall represents my almond and oat milk. There's just a few chocolate milks thrown in, and then the rest is what my family drinks. These are back to the prints. If for people who want to buy any this week, I will donate 25% to Missouri River Relief again, but these are some other ones. The thing that I really like about these is like this piece, I actually made about 4 different prints out of it. And so it was another laundry container, and I carved it down to like literally its essence. If I made one more cut in that thing, the whole thing falls apart. But I kind of would pull it and smash it and photograph it in high speed as it insists on springing back to its own shape. And this one, like for me, just kind of reminds me of like someone like gracefully falling in a pool. This other red one, that's another laundry container, and I did several different prints with this as well. I know, right? This looks like to me like some strange pelvic device. I never can figure out what I think about it, but I really love it. And again, like it just depends on like sort of the lighting that I shoot it in and the angle that I get it at. It's been a lot of fun. So I've got about 24 of these prints. I'm not going to bore you with all of them. Oh, that's my website if y'all want to go check them out to see the other ones. So my daughters play a huge part in my life. They're now 16 and 18, but at the time, this was back in like, I don't know, 2020 or something. This is my youngest daughter. You know, I'm happily humming along doing this like super minimalist, maximalist, big installation in my studio with these materials. And she sits me down one night and she's like, I am so upset with all the adults. You're handing us a world on fire. And how am I supposed to trust any of you? And I was like, oh, you were correct. And it really gave me pause that we sort of like tell kids one thing and we do other things. And I really wanted to show not only her, but her entire school that as we go through life, we can make choices. We don't really necessarily understand the full ramifications of those choices sometimes. I believe the corporations did when they started going down this plastic route. But as people started, using all this plastic, I don't think we realized how incredibly ubiquitous it would become. And also, just so you know, cradle to grave plastic is still the best material when you factor in shipping cost and weight and all of that. But clearly we need to reduce that amount. And so what I wanted to do with her, so I collaborated with her middle school to make this mural using plastic bottle caps. And it was really funny because all of my other work outside of those prints it's all like monochromatic. And so this just kind of changed everything for me in a really fun way. So we put out a call to the middle school and the community around it and said, bring your plastic caps. And we just got like buckets and buckets and buckets and buckets and buckets of them. I mean, people are still, they'll just email me every once in a while. They're like, I have a little baggie. Like, you want to come to the studio? Or should I come to you? This is the piece that we made. She designed it. It is a lone fish in the sea, and it really makes me think about, all that plastic killing all of those, ocean life. Not to be a bummer about it, but visually, the thing that I loved about it, again, I made this 2-sided. I think that's the back of it. And I did that so the sun would shine through, because this middle school has these huge windows, and we put it in the window, and so you can see it from both ways. What else I loved about it from an artistic, a visual standpoint, was the amazing way that you can layer your colors and your textures to just make this like sort of rich tapestry. And you'll see some bottle cap murals that are just like one cap, and it looks completely different than how let's see, I heard I had a laser point. Oh, it works. What fun. See, these are like 4 different caps put together. And it just really gives a whole different feel to the piece. I titled this piece, that is it in the window. I titled this piece Guiding Light because I really, I love to work with children. I really think they provide us not only with inspiration, they call us on our hypocrisy. They make us be better, ideally. Anyway, it was a ton of fun. And that color work really helped me find more joy in working with the plastic. But I just love how the people interact with it. So this is this is my studio. It's in Midtown St. Louis, I think I said. And for Earth Day, I open it every once in a while and just invite the community in, and have a great time. So this piece back here, this is the wall of arugula, as I call it, or it's the post arugula. These are just the clear containers on the wall, and I painted that wall to give it some pop. Working with the clear plastic has its own like challenges and fun things. And I put these little sort of fluorescent pieces of paper in each one to make it pop and give it some texture. This piece here, can anybody guess what that is? I know it's hard to see from there. If I could zoom. It is 1 gallon milk jugs. And this just made me so happy because I don't know if y'all have ever tried to do anything crafty with a milk jug. If you try to elevate it to art, it is incredibly difficult because everything I made looked like a stormtrooper. So I was really happy when I found this because as the light passes over it from the sunlight, I had these huge windows. I think you'll see in another slide. It creates these different patterns. So like right here, the middle, see this is 4 milk jugs in each little foursome. And I cut them open and then put them together. This piece is difficult to see. I basically made a quilt with the clear tomato containers. The other thing that I really noticed during COVID, because I'm like scrounging for groceries everywhere, I'd come home and I'm like, well, they have no blueberries. Or they would change, the blueberry producer, or the packaging would change, but it's the same blueberry. And I just found like the packaging really, really interesting. And I'm calling attention to this packaging right here because I absolutely love it from a narcissistic standpoint. Next time you go to the grocery store and you see those, looks kind of like a triangle with a yellow bottom. The packaging itself looks very Art Deco. It's gorgeous. The other thing that I do at these open studio events is I just like bring out my trash and I invite people to play. And it's a huge amount of fun because a lot of times people will say like, I don't want to do this. I'm not an artist. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, just keep trying. To come up with that plastic milk jug thing, like literally took me a year, not full time. I was going on and off. But these guys in particular, this is a father and daughter, and after like that 15 minutes of awkwardness, like not knowing exactly what to do, then they really got into it and had a great time. This is some other, just the trash. These are all the coffee bags I have and some containers and extra sort of off pieces from what I did. These are the prints in the background and another bottle cap mural I'll show you in a minute. But I'll just invite people to come take this and go to another table and make things with it. And it's just a lot of fun. This is the start of the bottle cap murals that I was making. And it was really interesting. So I think I sort of got involved kind of, well, not really with Missouri River, but Big Muddy Adventures is right across the street from me, and Terrain Magazine. There's like 3 other environmental nonprofits in this group. And I walked over and I was like, I would be delighted to help y'all raise some money. And the guy that I ran into was not that person. He was in charge of the kids. So he was just like, why don't we work with the kids? And I was like, sure. And so I had the Boys and Girls Club over to my studio for a couple of times, and I did an hour or 2 long workshop with them. And the thing that I just thought was like so cool was they all like ran over to this piece, and you can see them scratching their head and they're identifying the caps that they know. And it was so fun to like hear them like playfully argue and point out what came from where. So see if I can, like this These are milk caps on top of an IKEA plate. That is from a laundry detergent. These are like soda caps. These are soda caps. This is a lot of like Starbucks. And you can't see it because the kids are blocking it out, but I also have like a lot of deodorant lids. So I take any kind of caps as long as they're plastic. When I finally finished that piece, and it took me 3 years, we would lay out the entire design, and I'd get up on a ladder and look down at it because it's hard to see, that amount of space like this. Whoa, sorry about that. Wait a minute, can I do it? No, I'm gonna let you do it. I finally, I was invited to a show in Nashville, Tennessee, and I knew this gallery was really beautiful, and I wanted to hang it in this space to see how it would work. And it's two-sided. I use UV stabilized zip ties to connect the caps to a wire mesh, and I do that for a couple of reasons. But one, and the most important to me, again, coming from a fiber art background, when I would do these sewing pieces, I would often turn the piece over, and the backside was much more interesting than the front side. Like the front side might look like an apple, and the backside was just like a bunch of red lines. And I love that. And so I sort of had experimented with that idea with the brass fasteners that I used in that first mural. But then in thinking about wanting these to be potentially for indoor or outdoor situations, I went for these zip ties, and hopefully there it is. The zip ties are just unbelievably fun and awesome. They're neon. So again, as you walk past the work or the sunlight goes across the work, different spots kind of light up. It's almost like a black light effect. The next place I went and showed this was at the DeVos Convention Center as part of this huge citywide art exhibit called Art Prize that happens every year in Grand Rapids. If you haven't been, it's a ton of fun. I was kind of stunned how great it was. But I wanted to hang this work in a convention center to see if the work of this size would work in this huge space. And you can't really see it from this slide, but that convention center is gigantic. And it stood up, and I was just really happy about it. So as you walk through these front doors, you see the back side of it with the zip ties, and then you have to walk up those steps to enter the convention center. That's the back side of the piece. And you can see how, depending on where the sun is, different pieces and different parts of that piece light up. This is called Reef, by the way. And I was just kind of going for cool designs when I was making it. But a lot of people have said it looks like coral reef, and I agree. That's another up close to the zip ties. The really fun part for me, in terms of participation is people bringing me these caps. And sometimes it's the cutest thing ever. They'll text me or email me, and they're like, I've got some caps. You want them? And I'm like, yeah. And they'll come over to the studio, and they'll literally have like 3 in their hand. I'm like, yay. And then sometimes they bring me little baggies, or, this is a flower pot. And they just, it's the fabulous part for me is it gets people in the habit of paying attention to what you're consuming and purposefully doing something with those caps. So what I'm really trying to do with these, much more collaborative bottle cap pieces is work with a particular community to see what they're consuming. Like one of the funnest things for me when I started putting these together is I saw these pink caps. They're about 2 inches tall, and they had this beautiful like swirly pattern. And I was like, God, I've never seen that before. And so I went to the grocery store to do some research. And it turns out they're for Dairy Whip containers. So someone was eating a lot of Dairy Whip. It was just really like a lot of fun. Here's some other, like that's Alex. He was on the other slide too. Like I'm just putting him in there because to show that, he is one of my continuous collectors. This person on the left, thank you, Missouri River Relief. She goes to the meetings out in St. Charles, and she contacted me and said she was going to be in St. Louis, and she had 2 boxes of caps that she had been collecting thinking she was going to do something with. And, she decided at some point she wouldn't, found out about the project, and not only brought me them, but she brought them to me cleaned and categorized by size and color and their label. And it turns out we're 23 years and 364 days apart. So that was really just pretty awesome. So I get to like meet people like this that stop by the studio, or I know, or we just sort of make these connections from events like this. Or sometimes people just leave them outside my door. This was awesome. So one of my neighbor friends from the studio texted me this picture, and he's like, "You made the coolest installation." And I'm like, "Thank you." Although I was getting in the car and running to the studio to clean it up. Because I just, I didn't know how that was going to be like received. And I'll show you what I did with that in a minute. But these are actually can carriers. And they were a gift from an artist who had just wandered by the studio a couple months before. And I had to track him down. I just put it on the internet and I was like, I don't know who brought these, but thank you. Because they don't really make them anymore. As y'all may know, they've really gone to cardboard holders for like your 6-packs and your 4-packs. So these aren't around very much, but he had been collecting them since 2017, always wanted to do something with them, finally decided I am the person to do something. And boy, have I had a good time with these. This piece right here, this woman from Webster Groves, which is a community in St. Louis, had participated in the piece at White Island Middle School back in 2022 is when we did that. And about every 3 months, she'll say, "I'm on my way to the city soccer stadium. Can I drop a bag for you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be there in a couple of minutes." So just drop it. And that dog food bag is filled with caps, and it's just awesome. So when I got the cap carriers, I did my usual gig of cleaning them and categorizing them and figuring out what I had. They cleaned up really beautifully. I was very happy about that. And so I had this big, huge installation at St. Louis Airport. If y'all have been there recently, or if you're going there anytime now to May, in Terminal 1, where like United and Delta is, as you leave your flight and go to the baggage claim, there's a 50-foot wall where usually they have commercial displays, but when they don't have those rented out for commercial displays, they will commission artists to put pieces in there. And I was really intimidated because 50 feet is a lot of space, and it's a case, and there's things as an artist that you want to think about depending on like where you're exhibiting. Like if you're in a museum, you have an expectation that people have sort of mentally prepared themselves to come, contemplate a work of art in a different way than you are, freaked out or late or stressed or happy or whatever you are when you're traveling. So I really oriented this in a way to attract people's attention as they were traveling. And the beauty of having my studio is I have all this window. So I got to put these works in my window, acting like it was in the case, where I could experiment, and I would go out onto the street and like walk by and see if what I was doing was working. So these are the carriers, and that is another experiment which I decided I wasn't good enough to show. So I would also put things up in the studio, and the thing that I also really loved about these cap carriers is we ended up thinking about them as like little gestural marks for these other bigger, like more formal pieces, and they added this really nice sense of play to the much more minimalist pieces that I was working on, and that made me really happy. This is Mad Green. They are my new studio assistant, and just really awesome to work with. I just put this in here for fun. Again, some other guy like just wandered by my studio, and he said, "My dad ran this metal shop out of here in the 1950s, and you want a picture?" And I was like, "Sure." And I didn't think he'd ever come back, but he did, with a black and white Xerox of what my studio looked like in the 1950s. So that's then, and here it is now. So for the people interested in history in the audience, I just thought I'd throw that in. This is kind of where I started playing with I was really interested in perceptual shifts. Again, like you're walking from your flight, you're going to baggage. I wanted the work to change as you walked by it. So, sort of conceptually, I'm interested in a perceptual shift in your thinking, but physically, I was interested in having the actual work shift as you walk by. So, I don't have the video, but as you can see here, I hung things like in the middle of the case and on the back of the case, and here's like shadows. So as you walked by, the part up front appeared as if it was moving with like against the piece. And I just really achieved something that I was working on pretty hard. This is my piece de resistance at this point in my life. I was really, really happy about it because as you saw, I had hung this vertically in a couple spaces, and I was really like stressed out about how to show it in this case. This is almost 30 feet long, this case is. And I was gonna just hang it flat, and I just kept thinking, that's just kind of boring. Like, and about a week before the installation, as all pieces of inspiration, I finally realized, why don't I attach the panels together and twist it? And it was really quite difficult, Matt and I, to lift it up because that span made it quite heavy. But I have to say I did all my measuring exactly, so the installers were able to just put it up. Made me very happy. Oh, sorry. So back to this. Here you can see the zip ties. So this top is the zip tie, and the bottom is just the bottle cap part. And then we lit it. I bought these special lights, and I ran them all along the bottom of the cases to look like, again, I'm very interested in this idea of like looking like the plastic's kind of in an aquarium or something. And I went back to shoot it one day, and I just saw people like all over it, and it made me really happy that I had, achieved what I was looking to do. This is my Instagram if anybody wants to connect with me. That's about it. I just want to say that what I'm trying to do with this work is call attention to how we can work together to solve the problem. It's kind of my hope that if people look at like the artwork that I'm making and you're like, well, if she can make those milk jugs do something interesting, maybe I can do something with mine. If she can make this bottle cap mural, maybe I can find something interesting to do with it. As a tip to you guys, if you are looking to sort of like have a creative outlet in your house with your own plastic waste, the really awesome thing, it's free. It accumulates way faster than you think it's going to. And it's free. What I will often do if I'm looking for inspiration is I'll go on Pinterest. I'll just Google like some random word, or like I'll look like artistic milk crates or something. And then you get inundated with all these crafts and art pieces that other people have done, and you can get inspiration that way. The last thing I want to say is I actually got turned down about 6 months ago from a group of teenagers for an installation at a museum, but I was so incredibly appreciative of their feedback. Their main reason, as I understand it from turning down my proposal, was that it was too joyful. They wanted it to be like depressing, and it really made me hone in for myself and for telling others why I'm making these beautiful, joyful works. And the reason is, particularly with you guys being interested in the river and the environment, when you just keep hearing that like the world sucks and things are falling apart, at least for me, I'm like, huh. And when I hear that someone is turning the plastic into bricks and building buildings and, sticking all the wine bottles into a wall and building a house, I just get really happy. And so I'm trying to make it really joyful to get your attention, hopefully see something really beautiful, and then be inspired to do it yourself. And that is it for the talk. I will now take questions. I'm going to put this clicker away. And just in the interest of forming community, I'd love to know y'all's name and, whatever else you want to tell me about yourself. with your question.
Okay.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
My name's Ann Jacobson, and I taught art at a private school here in Columbia. And we did a big project recycling plastic waste.
Fantastic.
It was really, really fun.
I'd love to see those pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I could send you some. But I was wondering about when you use zip ties to attach the tops, were you like drilling 2 holes and making a top like a button?
The holes.
And then you would weave the zip tie through the 2 holes and attach it?
So it's I'm going to give you a long answer. Sorry, it's kind of the only way I know how to answer things. A lot of times when I'm working in the studio, I know that I'm working not in the most efficient way, but I am making a one-of-a-kind piece. So like, I don't have time to like make that tool, right? For this piece, I knew that I was going to start really making a lot of them. And I thought about the 2-hole system in the beginning, but that is 30 seconds a hole times 35,000. It's just a lot of time. And so what I realized is if I make the hole smaller than the zip tie head, the head can't go through. And then the mesh is smaller than here's the cap, and then the zip tie's here, and then the mesh is here. I take another zip tie and secure it on this end, and that gives more movement on the backside. So I just did 1 hole, but to go on and on about the holes, I didn't want to drill them because as I'm drilling them, I'm like, I'm now just creating microplastics in my studio that I'm smelling and breathing. So first I put a mask on. But I didn't want to do that because then I would, need to go back and collect all of that microplastic and melt it down and do something with. So I burned holes, which actually is a great solution. It turns out is one of the best as long as you have your soldering iron set at the right temperature. The challenge with that was like prescription bottle caps are very hard plastic. Your single-use water bottles that are really designed to, I guess, be the least environmentally harmful, the really thin ones with the really thin caps, like you can just burn through those really fast. And if you don't have the temperature right, you do create a toxic smell. So I stopped doing that and I found a little Dremel, a hand Dremel. So I hand Dremeled, and now my next stage is I just bought for a new project I think it's called a punch press. So I know you can do it by hand, but again, by hand times 35,000 is a lot. So imagine like a drill press with a hole punch in it where you can just come down and punch the holes.
My other question is, what about the fading of the plastic when it's subjected to the light?
It doesn't fade that much. So this is most of my, if I hope I'm saying this right, HDPE, and the colors are just like so saturated. I mean, it's fascinating when people come in the studio and they're looking around and they're like, wow, where did you get that paint? I'm like, I did not paint that. That is the saturated plastic color. But when you see like children's toys that have been left out in the yard and they do fade, you can
little tykes.
Yeah, you can actually take a heat gun and just run it over and the color comes back. Yeah, like the plastic kind of melts back together. It's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for coming here.
Oh,
all the way from St. Louis. And Margaret Keller says hello. She wished she could have made it.
I'm Rob Jacobson. I'm married to a retired art teacher. And I was just going through your talk, I was wondering if you could ask the packaging industry to change something to make the packaging more artistic. What would you ask for?
That is not where I thought that question was going. That's, I think it depends on what you're making that for. Like if it's a single use container, I would ask them to make it as ugly as they possibly can. I love how many water bottles I saw around here. I always carry mine. If it's for, like, I do have noticed that the breweries are working with artists to make really beautiful labels. And I love those on the aluminum cans. Along those lines, I follow two African artists who do similar work. They are way ahead of me with everything they're doing. My mind is blown by how awesome they are. One is Ananatsu, El Ananatsu. And for those of you who have been to the St. Louis Art Museum, he's got that giant piece in the lobby right across from the desk. And it's like bands of red and gold. So these two people are from Africa, and a lot of their work is about colonialism and, you know, how the Westers invaded their country and caused all these problems. So Elanatsu's work is collecting metal labels from liquor bottles, but boy, is it beautiful. And then he's able to like fold the fabric in this really gorgeous way. He also has, I think currently, could be done by now, a huge show at the Tate. So if you're interested and you don't remember how to spell his name, just look up the Tate Museum and he'll come up. Another guy I discovered recently is Moffat Takadiwa. And he uses not only bottle caps, but like basically he just like scavenges the trash in his country. And the thing that I find just mind-bogglingly awesome about his work is the shapes are gorgeous. Like he's not making this like tight-wad minimalist American Western like rectangle that I've been doing. And his works are very muted. They're like browns and greens and whites and blacks. And it made me realize that for the packaging, you know, here in our Western capitalist society, they are making that packaging just as bright and like cheerful and lovely as they possibly can to draw us to it, to get us to buy it. So if it's aluminum, go for it. If it's not, I don't know. It is interesting though, as I've been carving and working with these pieces, and I have been looking at the packaging with, you know, completely different eyes, and some of the lines in laundry detergent containers are just exquisite. I encourage you all, as you go look at the laundry, you know, like pretend you're doing something else and meditate out on your container. It was pretty neat when I got a collection of mine together. I think I made 3 or 4 different pieces using just laundry containers, and I saw them all together. And again, this is just what my family had gone through in about a year. I switched to the laundry sheets. Also, I don't have to lug home that giant container, like, you know, every 3rd day with a family, active family. And then for another piece, I have an old mattress, what do you call it? Spring mattress that I had for another work. And I had folded it up kind of like a fortune cookie from 4 sides for another work. And it was sitting in my studio, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh my God, those holes in the bed springs could probably exactly fit these single-use water bottles. So my husband used to drink vitamin water as a single-use water bottle because he was like, this is, you know, the place I can get it. And he saw all those things together. I mean, the piece is like 5 by 5 by 5. It's big, and it's just a small portion of what he's drinking 2 a day, you know, for a year and a half. I got a lot of those suckers. And he went to the powdered form of vitamins. So the other thing I'm trying to do with my work is, you know, really like once you see like what just one person has accumulated over a pretty short period of time, just ask, you know, hopefully that triggers you to rethink your habits. Do you like that very roundabout answer to your question? And hi, Margaret's friends. She told me you were coming.
So I have a question. My name's Laura Simpkin, and my question is, in what way do you feel like your social activism and the work that you do, how do you think it's influenced your children? Like,
Okay. I've had to kind of back
this
off.
however you want, but like,
No. I love this question.
Yeah,
because you know, children always want to be what you're not. She really kind of went down this like environmental recycling road with me for a good 2.5 years, and she's kind of over it. because I've gone like nuts with it. So I have realized in my own household, I've got to chill out just a little bit. Um, yeah, so there's that with the kids. I'll tell you the other thing that I find fascinating is when people working with me in the studio, like clearly this work is all about the 5 R's, and they will still like take their aluminum soda can and put it in my trash. And I just kind of look at them and I look at the can, and pick it up, take it where it goes. The reason I was answering that way with the kids is I do think there's a real fine line of just like talking about it all the time and saying, you've got to be like this, or being judgmental. Every once in a while, I'm at the house and I will just throw a plastic container away. And I'm just like, you just got to be okay. Like like I'm not trying to get anyone to like, go from like 0 to 60 with this incredibly holistic behavior. Like I just kind of want us to think about like all the little baby steps that we could do. Like if everybody in this room took one little baby step, it would be like one giant leap. Okay, so I'm finally done talking if you have any more questions.
Are you still doing things with natural fibers?
I don't think I have done anything with natural. When I embarked on this, I first thought it would be like a body of work. But I'm pretty convinced at this point it will be the rest of my life work. And I'm just thrilled. I'm sort of an introvert extrovert in that I can be very extroverted and then I have to go like totally recharge my battery for 2 days. So when I have done these like huge citywide scale projects where I'm dealing with a lot of people very involved, it is incredibly invigorating, but also incredibly draining for me. And then I was doing a lot of work with addressing mental health and underserved communities. And I realized that is probably for me a step too far. I just don't understand these communities because I have had the privilege not to grow up that way. And I was really thinking like, what can I do as a person who really wants to do something good and make art? And when I realized I can take this plastic that is a free, ubiquitous material and have this incredible social commentary and work with people or work alone in the studio, plus that whole carving experience. It's just like everything gelled. And I've grown to really, really love the color too. Yeah. I still love fiber though, but I think I can do it all in plastic.
But how about juxtaposition? So the two natural fibers and artificial things.
Yeah, I may at some point. Yeah, I've probably got 5 years of planned projects and experimentation right now. And that is, my work is just so labor intensive. If anybody wants to come work in the studio, you're welcome. Until I can speed the labor up. Yeah. I'll still be just probably working straight with plastic.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Stacy. I'm a medical illustrator here in
Awesome.
town, so get to work in art and science too. So is there a community of artists like you? I feel like I hear so much more about artists working from trash essentially. And so I just wonder if there's kind of a growing community or like an annual conference or some kind of connection that
there is absolutely a growing community. Like when I referenced those 2 African artists who are just light years ahead of me, they probably started doing this maybe 30 years ago. Here in America, I've seen people who've been working with it maybe as long as like 15 years. It is growing exponentially though. So you've just got these huge communities of everyone who makes like the giant fish on the beach that everybody can put the trash in, or they build the pavilions, or what I'm trying to do is really take it to this like different fine art level without compromising the integrity of the structure. And then you've got other artists who like, they'll take a milk jug and shred it and like make these like gossamer things, like really referencing fiber art that are beautiful, not really what I want to do. But yeah, the community is definitely growing. If you know, like on Instagram or Facebook, you know, hashtag like plastic art. I mean, you'll get a huge gamut, but you'll start to see a lot of the artists. And again, I look at a lot of Pinterest to see what's going on in other parts of the world. But I don't know that we've ever had a conference or anything yet.
Yeah.
It's coming, I'm sure. I really feel like it's I don't know if it's the next hot material, but as people discover more about what this material can do, I mean, because you can now print with it, you can build with it, you can even as a DIYer, you know, melt it and create all sorts of like trivets and blocks and all sorts of things with it. Anybody else? Are we done?
Hello, I'm Virgil Blauer. I'm a natural builder with straw bales locally.
I didn't catch your name.
Virgil.
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 Okay.
So I'll get closer to this thing. I think I heard you say somewhere in there something to paraphrase along the lines of that plastic cradle to grave is like the best material, all like transportation costs included. And I'm curious for you, like, to hear you expand a little bit more on that, and like maybe what alternatives or what hopes you have for a different material that could someday be the best instead. Or yeah, just say more about that.
That's a great question. Let me start out by saying awesome straw building. I have that's one of my other like fantasies I'm going to do at some point. It is that fact. I've read it in a couple different places from more scientific writers who have read about this or studied the cradle to grave. And I was interested in that because back when I was a fiber artist, I worked with an interior designer on cradle to grave environmental sustainability with like silicon wool and artificial fibers. And it was just really interesting, all the different things you had to think about for cradle to grave issues, which is just different than what we tend to think about when we're generally thinking about any kind of product. I could send you the books, but I don't remember them off the top of my head. You know, I'll just tell you to Google it. But I'm happy to send it to you as well, because there's actually a couple new books that have come out saying, you know, plastic isn't the evil that we think it is, but we do desperately need to cut down on the single-use plastic. And I think there was a last part of your question, but I don't remember it. Oh, alternatives?
While we're at it, I'm curious, by what metric are we talking about, like plastic being the best material? Just like the most valuable, useful, or I guess I'm not familiar with this rhetoric of.
Well, like a lot of the plastic can be, it's melted down and turned into other things.
Okay,
like, so you
gotcha.
can melt, like you can, if you get the same kind of plastic, you can melt all that back down and turn it right back into the same product. They're now starting to use it in a lot of clothing, which from my research is not good, because those microplastics are coming off on your body, and we're all filled with them at this point.
Yeah.
They come out in the dryer and the washer. So I'm not sure that that part is good, but in terms of being able to melt those products down and just, you know, reform them is, you know, from a, I don't mean a cost saving perspective from the corporation. I mean a cost saving perspective from the reuse of material.
Gotcha.
I think is really good. For instance, you can do the same thing with glass, but glass becomes much more difficult because you've got to separate all the colors out to make that work, and nobody does that. You know, even when
Right,
you've got
yeah.
all the bins, like you just put one green bottle in the white bottle and the whole thing's screwed. So they can like there's actually now a new glass recycler trying to do this in St. Louis, where all the glass can go in one basic pile, but they're breaking it down just to make like aggregate. They're not remaking milk bottles or whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And
that
my
helps. Thank you.
fantasy, which I was telling Margaret once, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if a milk truck just like drove through everybody's neighborhood and we all came out and like had our buckets and filled it up? Buckets being a very old fashioned word, who's going to bring a bucket out for milk? But actually that's being done in a lot of places. I don't think in the United States, but think about sort of your college dorm when you went up and, just push the button for the milk to come out. I see a lot of that happening. And I think as we keep pushing corporations to stop making this stuff and we quit buying the single-use water bottles, as we stop buying their product, they will go along with us to reinvent themselves or change that product. All right, well, thank you very much. This was a lot of fun.